What's up everyone, Vu of Envu Films back with another video, and today I'll be talking about the Canon C80 announcement and how it is going to affect the Sony camera brand, as well as probably how it affects Nikon and Panasonic and what I really think about it. And before I get into, the whole spiel and my opinion on the matter, it's probably a good idea that I clarify that I am a Sony shooter. I have been shooting Sony since I started this career as a videographer. It's been about 8 years now. My first camera ever was a Sony NEX6. And the reason why I bought that camera was because it was affordable. And at the time, it had 1080 60p. And the next Canon was, I think, 5D Mark III or something. And it only had 720 60p. And it was a lot more expensive. At that time, I didn't know what the difference was between full frame and APS-C or whatever. So I went with Sony. And since then, Sony has never let me down. Sony as a camera brand has continuously improved its cameras over time. And due to me investing my hard-earned money to Sony cameras, gear, lenses, the whole 9 yards, I have been able to grow my career, grow my skills, and technical abilities, in filmmaking, cinematography, or whatever, as well as obviously provide for my family. If you want to say that I have a Sony bias because of that, that's fine. And it might be true. Like, there might be a Sony bias coming out of me. I would also like to be clear that I do not get paid for Sony for anything. I do not get sent any gear from Sony early for review or even later for review. I've never gotten anything from Sony, okay? And those of you who pay attention to my channel, you probably noticed that I recently went to Sony condo, and yes, they pay for my hotel stay, my flight, and food at the hotel, drinks or whatever, but they didn't actually, pay me anything, but they didn't actually compensate me with any cash or anything to go there. Matter of fact, I had to take 4 days out of my time to go there, and I also had to hire my friend to help me film a wedding that I had to do the Friday I was flying back from condo because I was going to miss the first 2 hours of it. So that costed me money. And of course, those 4 days away from my family, there's monetary value to that, whether it be, working on different things or spending time with my family. So no, I have never actually been paid by Sony to do anything. I'm just speaking as the perspective of a videographer, filmmaker who has owned a lot of gear, mostly Sony, with the small month dab into Fuji X-T4. And also where I have been doing most of my work is in wedding filmmaking, corporate commercial films, and social media videos, as well as my own douchebag YouTube and Instagram stuff.
Right out. Your YouTube review, it trap.
So that is where my experience lays. So that is where my opinion is coming from. So, and if I speak out of line with regards to camera specs and camera features and all that stuff, due to my lack of understanding in certain filming environments like sets or whatever, I get it. I'm prepared to read about it in the comments. Also, I do not care what camera brand you use. I don't care how you go about your business. The only thing I care about in terms of individual filmmakers out there is their deliverables. What are they creating? What does their image look like? What stories are they telling? What is the final deliverable? Regardless of what they're filming with. They could be filming with the damn Samsung Galaxy, S8 or whatever. What is the final deliverable? To me, at the end of the day, it does not matter what camera, what brand camera, or whatever you're shooting with. It's all about the final delivery. I've seen many films shot on, RE and all that stuff on Netflix, and those films are complete trash. Documentaries filmed on Reds and REs, complete trash. But I've also seen plenty of films filmed with mirrorless cameras, be it Panasonic, FX3, Canon, whatever, that is way better than those higher end productions. I've seen dudes film weddings with Reds, big rig cameras, you name it, and they're very mid. It is what it is. But then I've seen plenty of guys just filming on Sony A7S II, and films are amazing just based on their knowledge of how to film, their knowledge of exposure and storytelling. Again, I don't really hate on camera brands. I hate on camera brand fanboys. And I guess you could call me a Sony fanboy if you want, so I should be hating on myself. I'm just putting all the information out there so you're clear about my perspective and where I'm coming from. I've made videos in the past where I did not clarify exactly my stance on this stuff, and people got really offended, namely Panasonic S5 Mark II, Mark IIX fanboy users who get really invested in their $1,800 camera and start crying about it in the comments when I say anything negative about it. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get to the Canon C80. So now I am in my backyard and I forgot my ND filter inside, and I'm a lazy piece of YouTube douchebag trash. I have no desire of going back inside to getting the ND, so I'm cranking the shutter to oblivion. That's pretty much the level of filmmaker that I am when it comes to my perspective of the Canon C80. Excuse the incredibly hairy dead cat that I'm holding right here for high quality audio. I assure you the cat is fine. Donated its meat to my local Chinese food restaurant. Links in the description below to order Kung Pao cat. With that being said, the new Canon C80 is a fantastic camera. Don't get me wrong. The specs are all there, 6K, 30p or something. All the codecs for you to use, all the features, all you Canon D-bag fanboys can use to your delight. I originally wasn't going to talk about this at all, but I get triggered really easily, especially by D-bags online, ones who say things like, oh, Canon is coming now. Canon is about to take over the camera world. Canon is about to kill Sony. Like, honestly, I don't even think Sony gives a shit. I don't give a shit. And I'm about to explain you why I don't give a shit about the new Canon C80. First of all, the Canon C80 would do nothing for me, especially as a Sony shooter who films on FX3. I don't usually film my FX3 like this, but I just have it here rigged out for this video as an example. Currently rigged out with a Sigma 28-45 f1.8 lens for E-mount.
Let me show you. Oh my god, big black camera lens. Sigma 28-45 f1.8.
Do they make it for Canon mount? Probably not. So there's a piece of fantastic glass that you probably can't use on your Canon C80. I believe it's a Falcam cage, and I have a bunch of Condor Blue power cables going to the Ulanzi 99 watt hour V mount that powers the camera and the monitor, which is a Portkeys LH7P. This monitor has touch functionality for the camera, so I could touch focus, I could change the settings by touching the screen on the monitor, which is why I prefer it. If I wanted to rig out an FX3 for it to be able to do most of the handling things like an FX6 can do or a Canon C80 can do, I can. I can also break it down where it's the size of a small mirrorless camera and film that way, and I'd be completely content with it, which is actually most of the time that is how I film with it. Handheld and on gimbal, just the camera and just the Z battery, nothing more, nothing less, maybe a shotgun mic, and that's it. And I get exactly what I need. 4K 60, 4K 120, full frame sensor. 120 is more like a 90% of the full frame sensor, which might as well be full frame. And of course, S-Log3 10-bit. And if I wanted to shoot RAW, I could do it externally via Atomos Ninja. And I believe that's a 12-bit RAW or something like that. Pretty much it'll look exactly the way it looks now, except for this monitor would be my Atomos Ninja instead. And probably it'll probably still be lighter than the C80. In terms of image quality, the C80 is 6K, and on any of the 4K options are downsampled, so it's going to be sharper, more detailed, I guess, than the 4K from the FX3. I believe CVP said the Canon C80's 4K was looking sharper than the FX6's, which, it should, because the FX30 technically looks sharper than the FX3. But the funny thing about super sharp imagery is that people actually don't like it, which is very strange, and I don't either, which is why I'm using a freaking mist filter on my quote-unquote less sharp than C80 FX3, because I don't want it to be like super digitally sharp. So, I mean, maybe it has something to do with detail or whatever, but like I said in the beginning of this video, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because no one is going to be zooming in to pixel peep detail like that. In my opinion, the FX3 has plenty of detail. Apparently enough detail for Hollywood filmmakers to use an FX3 for the creator. I know that whole thing is, completely repeated so many times now, but it just proves the point. It tells you that this here, a 4-year-old camera made in 2020 or announced in 2020, could be cross-shopped with a 2024 camera. I mean, again, call me Sony biased, but that's a testament to Sony and what they did with the Sony a7S III and the FX3, as well as the Sony ZV-E1, which I'm filming with right now, with autofocus and all that stuff. Till this day, it is still competing, and I think till this day, there's no cameras in its price range that can do what it can do. 10-bit, 4K, 64K 120, basically, full frame all the way through, with audio recording, the whole 9 yards, excellent image quality. And then, of course, there's going to be you Canon D-bags out there talking about Canon color science.
It don't have Canon color science. Let me show you. Hey man, this the cinematic Canon vlog. The Canon color science is the best.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't care about Canon color science. I actually don't even prefer it. I prefer the colors to be as neutral and as natural as possible, which Canon is not, so that I could grade the way I want to. And even the colors I have on my Sony cameras, I'm constantly changing how I grade them based on the film, based on the environment, or if I just get bored, I just want to do something else, I'm going to grade it differently. I don't really care for straight out of camera colors. I just care if it is 10-bit and if it is a log, and that I can do what I want with it. And the FX3, I could do what I want with it. And if freaking Hollywood filmmaker says they love the color science of FX3, then they're probably right, because they know better than me.
Sony FX3, it has really good color science. So the skin tones versus the world is you can really bend it to what looks like a Kodak film stock very easily.
Because again, I am just a YouTube D-bag filming in my backyard, filming people's weddings on the weekends, and doing some boring corporate talking heads here and there. That is what I do. So that is my perspective. I'm sure there are features such as SDI, and other quality of life features as, a camera op, holding a Canon C80 versus, a rigged out FX3 or whatever. But any camera that you buy that is like over $1,800, or maybe even over $1,000, if you're talking about like Sony ZV-E10, which is pretty much an FX30, that is made for content creators. Even if you rig that out and then give it a fan or something, I'm sure you could, if you know what you're doing, you could probably film a whole production with a dang ZV-E10 Mark II. So pretty much any camera you buy these days, if you know what you're doing, you're going to get excellent footage. In my opinion, any camera that can do minimum 4K 60 with 10-bit, and log profile, you're gonna be able to do some good stuff with it. Especially if it's interchangeable lenses. Obviously, when I say like 4K 60 10-bit, that includes like action cameras and like DJI Osmo, Pocket 3s and stuff like that. But if it's interchangeable lens, and if it's at least micro four thirds, and you as a filmmaker, what you're doing, you're gonna get excellent footage out of these cameras, and you're gonna be able to create excellent work, barring like storytelling and all this other stuff. So I'm not really sure exactly what the point of this video was, but I'm thinking, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to voice my opinion about this whole Canon C80 thing and how Canon fanboy D-bags online are all, straight double dribbling Canon nuts on their chin and just, wants to, randomly just talk a bunch of shit on other camera brands, when the reality is the C80 is just catching up. It is really just catching up to things that are already out there. We're talking about Blackmagics with our, Blackmagic 6K, which is already super cheap. 8K is available on Sony, just not yet on like a big cinema body at like $5,500. If I were to say, like, if you wanted a body like a C80 type of body, I would say that it's probably a better value at this point than the FX6, just due to the fact that it has, better resolution overall. But one might argue, I'm not sure if 4K 120 is cropped or not on the C80, but if you're going to be wanting to shoot 4K 120, the FX6 is still better. And if you want to talk about sharpness, whatever, okay, fine. If you want like the extra detail, the 6K downsampled 4K is probably going to be sharper, and if that's what you're looking for. But then there's some people who just really want the look of a nice, detailed, I can't believe I'm about to say this word, filmic 4K. Then the Sony FX3, FX6 sensor is there for you. Probably the one downside that keeps the FX3 from like being, a true quote unquote cinema camera or something like that is because you can't really completely turn off the noise reduction in camera. You can't really turn off in-camera noise reduction completely or something like that compared to like the FX6. But to be honest, even if, for me, I'm probably gonna end up doing some noise reduction anyway in post if I was shooting on FX6. So the FX3 and its minimal noise reduction most of the time, I'm completely fine with it. But yeah, like, if you're one of those dudes out there on like, Nikon, which already does 6K and 8K and all that stuff on like their Z8s or whatever, or Sony, Panasonic, and you're sitting there like, oh man, it's, Canon is really doing a lot of things, and Panasonic and Sony and stuff like that, it's kind of quiet, they're not doing anything. Just wait. If you already have one of the cameras that I was talking about that it's like over, $1,000, Panasonic S5 Mark II X, FX3, A7S3, Nikon, whatever, Blackmagic, like, and you're completely happy with the image of your camera already, and you're able to produce good work, the C80 doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, the C80 doesn't matter. And the last time the Canon fanboys are all hyped up was back when the Canon R5 was released 3 years ago, and then like a couple months later the Sony A7S3 was released, and they shut up really quick because their camera was overheating and the Sony A7S3 was straight beasting out for like a couple of years until Sony didn't know how to do firmware updates for the damn camera. But then of course the FX3 was there. Price difference between FX3 and like C80 is like not that much actually. It's like $1,700. So I could see the value of the C80 for Canon users, or dudes who are trying to get into it and looking to buy their first cinema camera and they're not really invested in any brands. But if you're invested in a brand already, you already have all the lenses and you're comfortable with what that brand offers you, there's no reason to be switching to any brand, period. In this day and age, like, every camera brand right now is capable of producing good stuff. And at the end of the day, it just really depends on what works best for you. And for me, what works best for me is Sony. And I'm willing to bet that I could film a bunch of product. I could film a lot better using my Sony FX3 than I can on FX6 or C80 like that. So with that said, I hope this video is insightful. I hope, it helps you make a purchase decision in the future, and I hope it can help you save some money by not making an unnecessary purchase decision. With that said, hope you appreciated the video, and till next time, Lighten up.
Hey, man, what you doing? Weed whacking?
Why do I have to be weed whacking? Is it because I'm Mexican? Bro, this is a cinema camera.
Oh my God, that thread? Why so big and heavy? You compensate for something?
No, I'm actually testing out these new R-less prime lenses from DZO. They're actually supposed to be pretty sweet.
That manual focus?
Yeah, but it's not really a big deal because I'm using the DJI LiDAR focus. And also, these are VistaVision lenses, which is going to make my footage look...
What you going to say? Cinematic? If you want to be the best, if you want to be professional, if you want to get invited to Sony condo, you need to have something lighter.
What do you got?
Let me show you. This is the new Sony 85 Mark II. Fast autofocus, creamy bokeh for the real cinematic footage with Timu potato jet.